Ferrari suffered a terrible blow on Sunday, especially after their hopes had gone up from Hamilton's sprint race win as both of their cars got disqualified. This isn't something that wasn't preventable, and it just goes to show that Ferrari is showing a lot of fragility when their fiercest rivals, McLaren, are finishing in a 1-2 order. With all this in mind, how can the Maranello team bounce back in such a long season? And more importantly, will it be bringing the morale in the team down? There is no doubt that the biggest disappointment from Sunday's race was Ferrari. The Italian squad saw both of their cars being disqualified. Leclerc due to being 1 kilo below the weight limit, and Hamilton due to having a 0.5mm excessive skid wear. While these are minimal breaches, they are still out of what is allowed, and the FIA made sure to follow up on their rules, with Gasly also being disqualified from the race. What this meant is that Ferrari lost a valuable 18 points in the Constructors' Championship, and there is no doubt that they will want to have a weekend to forget, even though, according to Vasseur, the season was about to start in China. But the problem's nature hasn't been precisely mounted on Sunday. The setup of the car changed after the sprint race, and while this was to be expected, nobody believed that they could take such a big step back compared to where they were on Saturday. In an official statement towards their fans and the F1 media, Ferrari wrote, "Following the FIA post-race scrutineering, both our cars were found not to conform to the regulations for different reasons. Car number 16 was found to be underweight by 1 kilogram, and car number 44's rearward skid wear was found to be 0.5mm below the limit. Shah was on a one-stop strategy today, and this meant his tyre wear was very high, causing the car to be underweight. With regard to Lewis's skid wear, we misjudged the consumption by a small margin." But it seems like the Leclerc excuse is the one that Mercedes used back in Spa last year, which means that it's definitely something they could have prevented. If we are to look at the race strategy in a deeper way, we would see one thing: every team has switched to the one-stop strategy during the race, not before it. Russell was the first to suggest that this could turn into a different race from what they originally planned, a two-stop strategy, and with every team switching to this choice, it was inevitable that they would have to take care of their hard compounded tyre a lot more in the ending stages of the race. And using the excessive tyre wear as an excuse doesn't really make much sense, because if you could have anticipated that Leclerc would have been out of the points, you could have easily pitted him and allowed him to make up ground and score some points instead of being disqualified from the race. Nevertheless, Ferrari have taken some positives away from this weekend, because if we are to look at the sprint event, they scored the first win in such an event, and it's with Hamilton. So the team will be looking to build onto this small light at the end of the tunnel ahead of the Japanese GP. Fred Vasseur noted that these are not small takes, and they are definitely something that the Maranello squad should reflect on heading into the Japanese GP. Elaborating on this furthermore, Fred said, "The positives from this weekend are the pole of Lewis and the win of Lewis in the sprint. I would say that the pace of Shah during the race, with the front wing damage and the loss of downforce we had, the pace was mega. This is the positive of the weekend. I think it's a very, very strong result from Leclerc. A bit more difficult for Lewis. We need to understand what happened between yesterday and today." What has been worth noting is that Ferrari is losing a lot of performance throughout the slow speed corners, which is practically the entirety of the first sector and the combination between the long straight which leads to turn 14. Luckily for Ferrari, there won't be such an issue in Japan, because the track is full with medium and high speed corners. Only 2 of them are from a slow speed nature. This means that whatever Ferrari understood from their car must be optimized in Japan, because this is the type of track that would suit the nature of the SF25 a lot more than what we saw in the first 2 races. The race itself was kind of poorly managed by Ferrari, because even though they let Leclerc ahead, who was strangely faster than Hamilton with a broken front wing end plate, it seems like they've done it with such precision. Multiple times, Leclerc told his race engineer that a different plan would work during the race, but Bozzi never actually listened to him and insisted towards plan A. However, as the race progressed, Leclerc received a message in which the team thought about plan C, to which he replied, I told you. This is a massive issue that needs to be solved sooner rather than later, because it seems like Ferrari is not listening to their drivers when it matters the most. And if they want to be championship competitors in any category, they would have to implement serious reforms in this section. Hamilton was happy that the team tried something with the car, but it didn't turn out in his favour, as he went on to say, "I'm glad that we tried something different with the strategy. I was struggling with the performance, so ultimately we had a pretty decent car in the sprint, and then we made some changes because we were trying to move forward and improve the car. This made it quite a bit worse going into qualifying, and then it was even worse in the race. It is unfortunate, but very hard to keep up with the guys ahead. The pit stop is too long here. It's a lot of seconds to catch up, and the others were still going faster at the end. Max was doing something similar to me, and I had much fresher tyres, so it was not great." It seems like the choices that Ferrari made regarding the race were massively different from the sprint event, where the car has suddenly started to act a lot weirder compared to where they hoped it would be. When explaining this, he went on to say, "The car was massively different from Saturday's sprint. I struggled. I didn't have any rear end, and then the car wasn't turning in the low speeds. Yesterday I didn't have that problem. I was just struggling with pace, so I was like, let me try something, but it didn't work." This goes to show that the team would have had a bad finish for their expectations, regardless of the disqualification for both of their cars, but losing 18 points in the Constructors' Championship is just too much for this part of the season. These points are crucial, and when McLaren is killing everybody at the front with a 1-2 finish, all Ferrari can hope is that the upcoming races will be much more balanced and managed from their side. Leclerc has also opened up on the relationship between him and Hamilton, because this is the first time that it has been up to a challenge, but that didn't affect how they feel towards each other professionally. When talking about this, Leclerc went on to say, "The relationship between me and Hamilton is going really well. Honestly, really, really well. We have a good relationship and it will stay that way. Obviously, I have a lot of respect for him with everything he has achieved, and I feel that he also has a lot of respect for me. It is great. We are already quite close in pace. He is super strong and he is getting on with the team super quickly. I am sure we will have many more fights, but we'll be fine." All of this goes to show that there is a lot to be worked on ahead of the Japanese GP, and whether we like it or not, Ferrari is not in a good situation right now. Losing such a big number of points can definitely hurt them in the long-term picture of the 2025 season, because the expectations for them were quite high, and to be in such a position is of course not something they would desire right now. Be that as it may, if there is a team that can bounce back from this situation, it definitely is Ferrari, as they do not have a lot of time to work on the solution now that McLaren is dominating the front with ease. The upgrades will be more than anticipated, and it seems like there is a lot to be improved in terms of adding rear downforce to the car. Nevertheless, Ferrari is now on the back foot, and they would have to rush towards the solutions back in Maranello without wasting any time. With all this in mind, do you think that Ferrari can fix their issues sooner rather than later? And more importantly, do you think that they can fight for the race win similar to what they did in the sprint race in China? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want to know more about Lawson and Tsunoda's potential swap ahead of the Japanese GP, make sure to check out the video that appears on your screen right now.